Hello and welcome to the morning show. It's Sybil and back.
Coming up on today's show, married since he was 23, Mike Davidson struggled with homosexual thoughts since he was a child. Now he heads up a group called Core Issues, which helps people who are homosexual alter their sexual preference through prayer and therapy. We'll be finding out more shortly.
Now look inside one of the most beautiful gardens in the country with gardener Helen Dillon. She'll be imparting her wisdom to help you transform your own outdoor space. For example, she's got a novel way of getting rid of slugs.
We put down these saucers here and there in a tempting sort of place to a slug, and then we put beer into them.
Okay.
My husband says that you don't catch slugs if the temperature is below 8 or 9 degrees centigrade. So this is just a perfect sort of put them down in the evening.
Okay.
I usually make an awful mess doing it, but the slugs will travel over the ground because they could smell it in the distance, and they say, ooh, yum, yum.
And you can't sleep because you're stressed out, and then you're stressed out because you can't sleep. It's a vicious circle. Psychotherapist and author of The Happiness Habit, Brian Colbert, will be explaining how you can break this pattern a little bit later on.
Now, as a young man, Mike Davidson struggled with homosexual thoughts and wanting to get married and have children. He chose the latter.
Now, the founder of the Christian group Core Issues, Mike works with people unhappy with their homosexuality and helps them to change their sexual preference, or as they describe it, sexual brokenness. But should we not just let people be who they are? Before we chat to Mike, let's hear his own story.
As far as I can remember, really, I knew that I was interested in the same sex. So yes, I can remember very early impulses that would have told me that my inclination was towards people of the same sex. I'm married and I have 2 grown children. We met in a church context. My wife has a wonderful voice. She really enjoys music and did a lot of opera work, actually, and had a strong contralto voice and would sometimes sing in church, and I just really appreciated that. I'm interested in music as well, and much more so then. And slowly something developed between us, and we've been married now for 31 years. And what I would say now, looking back, was that some of the basic issues around the homosexual experience that I was having in my life was not dealt with. It was very repressed, and therefore inevitable that eventually it would surface again. And it did that because I was in conflict. I was fighting that, and that didn't take away from my love or my sexual enjoyment of my wife, but it did interfere with it.
And Michael joins us now. You're very welcome to the programme, Michael.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
for
me.
coming on.
Thank you for coming along. You acted on that, so you say.
Yes, unfortunately I did. I became very unhappy, quite depressed, and I suppose with the fact that the internet is so available, I made connections that I would say I regret today, chiefly because I value my marriage and I value my wife and children. So yes, that happened to me as part of my experience.
Did you admit to this, or were you discovered?
Well, it's probably a mixture of both, but yes, I spoke it through with my wife, and she knew something was amiss. But we live in a time when I think young people are very au fait with the internet. So my son had also looked at something that I had written, which made him suspicious of the direction that I was going in. So there was a bit of that as well. And that was mortifying and very hurtful for him.
Yeah, well, was this the first inkling that your wife had of this? Because you had gay feelings from the age of 11. So when you first met your wife, did she have any idea that you had these thoughts? Or?
Yes, we had spoken it through to some extent. And I think from her point of view, it looked as though things were completely dealt with. And I think in terms of acting out and doing things, they were pretty well. But there remained this this desire, this need for connection.
You had a relationship with a man prior to getting married.
Yes, I studied in America for a while, and an older man, a college professor, got close to me. I got close to him, and not a great deal happened, but there was a level of emotional intimacy that was typical, I would say, of that kind of relationship. And that actually became very hurtful. I was very hurt by the relationship, and I made a vow, I would say, that I would never again get involved in such a relationship, and didn't. And eventually went back to South Africa, where I was living, and some years later met my wife, and we married, and that's how it went.
When you say never again get involved in a relationship like that, you mean with the man or just an older person, or
I
what do you mean?
just didn't want to get involved with homosexuality again. But I think the important thing to note is in that vow that I made, I'm never going to get involved with another man, I kind of withdrew from very normal friendships with men, the kind of buddy relationships that I think any normal man might have with other men. And there was a problem in that because following that, I would say masculinity became more and more mysterious, and it was like, because I was having no normal contact, I would say the desire for sexual contact grew.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay. People watching the programme might say, well, could Michael just be bisexual? Are you? Were you?
I have
Did you consider it yourself?
I have a problem with this labelling and this kind of oversimplistic binary model, gay, straight, with a few in between. I think sexuality is far more fluid. And so no, I wouldn't say that. I would say that people can suddenly experience homosexual thoughts in midlife. Similarly, homosexual thoughts can disappear, quite apart from therapy or any other kind of input. It just seems to be part of the normal process of, or the normal experience of human sexuality.
You say they can disappear, and you took a vow then before you got married, after that relationship you had with that man, and you said, okay, I'm not going to be with men again. But then after you got married, you were. So you're saying that the thoughts disappear, but do you mean only temporarily? Or?
No, what I'm saying is I was very repressed. I just buttoned down, and I was not going to do that, and I was going to live my married life, and everything was going to be fine. But the reality was I hadn't, I would say now, taken a close enough look at the origin of this, why it was happening. And it's inevitable. If you repress something, it's going to come back again.
Okay. Now, you say that you wanted to get married and you wanted to have children, but in this new millennia that we're in, you could have got married to a man and you could have had children.
Well, I think that is a choice, and that's a choice that millions of people would support individuals in doing, and the legislation in countries across the world would support that. What I'm saying is that there is a population group within all of our populations that is unhappy with homosexuality. And really CORE is about standing with those people who do not want to identify as gay. They're not, and we are not trying to tell the rest of the world how to live, but it is a simple recognition that some people are unhappy with homosexual feelings, do not want to identify, and feel that it's not, unauthentic to fight against that, try to work through it, and in some cases overcome it completely.
So how do you do that then? It's through a lot of prayer and therapy, isn't it?
Well, in many cases it is. I want to stress that sexuality can change quite apart from therapy, and I'm not advocating that sexual preference changes just through prayer. That would again be an oversimplification.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Catholic Church. There's absolutely no way, you know, it can through prayer. But
Yes.
but what you offer a combination of what, and how long does it take, and what's the plan of action when people come to see you?
Every story is different and every individual is different. So it would be a case of assessing people to really understand what their goal is and why they are seeking some kind of modification. And is it appropriate to work with that person? Not everybody can proceed in this direction. We're not even saying that everybody should. We're there primarily for those who want to seek it, and we're aiming to be as responsible and as accountable as possible in providing that.
What about a heterosexual person who does have homosexual tendencies? Can you not help them to discover that sexuality?
I think the process that I'm talking about is about maximizing the heterosexual potential that a person has. Now, if somebody wants to maximize a homosexual potential and go for gay-affirming therapy, well, that is an option that seems to be widely available. We are specifically concerned, I suppose, with gender-affirming therapies that would be about maximizing heterosexuality.
Now, your group is called Core Issues. There's a similar group in the UK, which a close associate of yours also looks after, Paul Miller. He has a similar group, doesn't he?
There are other groups all over the UK, and there are all sorts of different people and groups who offer different support. Yes, Paul Miller is one individual. I don't think I particularly want to go into that side of things today, because you'll know from the article in the Irish Times that there are very specific circumstances around...
Well, he's been ported to the General Medical Council, and there's a...
Over an undercover journalist, just to explain to the viewers at home who didn't read the article, an undercover journalist went into one of these group therapy session or reversal, and I think they were kind of trying to pinpoint traumas that this person might have had in their life as a reason why they were homosexual. Is that it? I mean, I don't know. You probably know more than me about it.
I think people can read up on that if they'd like to do that.
Okay. So somebody comes to see you. They say that they're unsure of their sexuality. What do you do?
Well, they might come and say, look, I'm married. This is not something I want. I actually feel I'm addicted. I'm addicted to pornography. I am addicted to meeting people in circumstances that I'm finding is hurtful to me and to my marriage. And I want to know if there's anything I can do about this. And I would probably explain that there is no magic bullet, there's no quick fix, but I would be prepared to stand with such an individual to try and help them to understand what's happening in their lives and the specific circumstances that may have contributed to what they're experiencing. So it might be through support groups. There are various support groups that people can belong to. It might be through befriending, linking them with people who would be appropriate mentors for them, just to, you know, again, stand with them shoulder to shoulder.
And have you had much success with people in Ireland?
Oh, there is very definitely a group of people who seek this kind of help. This is the unfortunate thing. It seems that people don't want to recognize that there is a legitimate group of people who are seeking help and who are fed up, as I got fed up of going to therapists and being told, well, this is genetic, this is the way you were made, live with it, realize society is very repressed, perhaps you need to think about changing your relationship with your wife, go and be gay. They're sick and tired of being told that, because that is not what they want to achieve. and they really don't understand why they can't find professional help who will stand with them.
But you talk about repression and how your own repression led you to another homosexual relationship during your marriage. Are you not encouraging these people to repress their feelings? You know, they're very vulnerable and confused when they come to you. So could they not be actually becoming something they're not and putting away the person they really are?
All of those things could be happening, but I think we have to pay very careful attention to this whole notion of who they really are. What do we mean by who they really are? Just because a young person, say at age 15, has a few homosexual thoughts, does that mean they're gay? I would argue not. If I was to ask a so-called straight man, have you ever had homosexual thoughts? Possibly they might not want to admit that, yes, occasionally that has happened. Does that make them gay? No, I don't think so. It just means that human sexuality just doesn't fit in a box and anything can happen. But if we close down too early on the gay identity just because I have a homosexual thoughts at some stage in my life, I think we're doing something very unjust. Why are we not saying, well, there is a range of experiences and there are all sorts of choices and responses to these feelings that you are having. And it may be that you want to identify as gay and you have a right to do that if that's what you want. But make sure that is what, you know, really is what you want to do. Don't just take it from, say, somebody who wants to push you in that direction. Just as I can be criticized excuse me, for pushing people in one direction, I think people can push people in the other direction as well. We've all got to be very, very careful in this kind of work.
Finally, how are you today? How are you with your thoughts today? And is it still a struggle for you, or do you feel that you have altered your sexuality for good?
I would say increasingly I have had increasing victory. I'm much happier. I don't have the kind of habitual thoughts that I once had. I'm not bound to that way of thinking. If you're asking me, is there any kind of maintenance in terms of my present position, I would say, yes, there is. Does that mean I haven't changed? Well, I would say definitely that is not the case. I have changed absolutely.
And to people watching this morning who are gay and who are saying at the television, what's wrong with being gay, you know, what would you say to them?
Being gay is absolutely your right, and there are millions of people who will stand with you. Would you not stand with those who don't want to be gay and who also have a right to identify in the way that they want to?
Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining us. Very interesting. And yeah, a million thanks. Don't forget, if you have a story you'd like to share with us on the show, we'd like to hear from you.
You can contact us by email at themorningshow@tv3.ie or text morning followed by your message to 53131.
Remember, you can write to us at The Morning Show, TV3 Westgate Business Park, Ballymount, Dublin 24. After the break, her garden in Ranelagh is legendary. We'll be getting some green finger tips from expert Helen Dillon, who will be telling us what we should be planting this week. It's after the break.